Welcome to the Q Podcast.
Q is about conversation.
If we're really concerned about ending poverty, we've got to be more concerned about creating justice.
Our cultural products as Christians need to both defy and resonate with the culture.
And God's doing amazing things. His church is expanding, his church is growing.
It's not what's the purpose of my life, it's what is the purpose that's been assigned.
Stay curious, think well, advance good. This is Q.
Welcome to another edition of the Q Ideas podcast. I'm Gabe Lyons, and today we want to focus on the cycle of inaction. And what does that mean? It means how many times do we get fired up about a particular issue, a subject, a topic, maybe a current event that happens that you get passionate about, and on the justice front, because you know it's wrong and it needs to be confronted, needs to be exposed, needs to be talked about. But all we do is a post on social media, and we think we've done something. We want to address, what does that mean? What does that look like, especially in a younger generation where social media has become such a way to communicate, such a way to show alignment with certain movements and people and hashtags and so on and so forth. You know, there used to be this term slacktivism that we talked about with the millennial generation, where it was this idea of activism, not really doing much, but maybe saying we care about the issue, but it doesn't always show up in our time or our money. And in the new Gen Z generation, they want to deal with that. They want to have a real conversation about what would it look like for us to get active and to not just talk, but actually put our money where our mouth is. And so today, you're going to hear a powerful talk from an incredible artist and activist, Danielle Coke. Now, she's young. She's in her young 20s, and she is someone who is a beautiful person. And you're going to hear that. You're going to hear this in her heart as it beats so strongly for people to really live what they've been called to do and to be faithful in every possible way. What's so cool about Danielle is, as an artist, in early 2020, she began creating some images, and it was in the wake of what was happening in our country around George Floyd. It was in the context of people asking questions about race and trying to learn and understand. And Danielle came along and started using her artistic gift to put out incredible statements of information, of education, of knowledge, of mobilization. And she did it in such a beautiful way on her Instagram account that all of a sudden, hundreds of thousands of people started following her and started wanting more of it. You can follow her on Instagram at Oh Happy Danny. It's spelled O-H-O, Happy Danny, spelled D-A-N-I. I would encourage you to do that. See what it is that she has been creating in her conversation she's been leading through social media over the past many years. But more than that, at Q Ideas, what we wanted to talk about at the Culture Summit was how many people followed, but then did nothing. And so there's a sense of performing, a sense of not really embracing the issue, but just wanting to promote yourself as an ally. And what would it mean for us to go deeper than just being an ally, but really being a part of a movement that creates change? Let's listen in now to Danny's perspective.
On January 6th, 2021, I remember being on the phone with my mom while watching the news as insurrectionists stormed the United States Capitol. I remember sobbing on the phone with her, not because I was shocked or confused by what was going on, but because the whole ordeal, and honestly, the whole year, had rendered me speechless. I couldn't form many thoughts or find many words to describe how it was all affecting me, a 25-year-old Black woman of faith living in America. But me being speechless might not be a particularly notable thing to mention if it wasn't for the kind of work that I do. As Gabe briefly mentioned, I am Danielle Coke, and I am an activist and illustrator from Atlanta, Georgia, and I aim to use art and words to take complex ideas and make them more digestible and easier to understand for the everyday person. My current work focuses on anti-racism, hope, and empathy, and through illustrated art and infographics, my goal has been to encourage faith, inspire justice, and help good people become better neighbors. This sometimes looks like this, simple illustrations that convey a deeper meaning, but it can also look like this, more nuanced infographics that seek to explain tougher issues like the school to prison pipeline or why saying I don't see color is problematic. And it can also look like this, shorter, heavier statements after unspeakable tragedies, when I finally had a chance to sit down and process or grieve or get some thoughts down on a digital canvas. But this time, on January 6th, 2021, after sobbing on the phone with my mom, trying to figure out what to say or draw or do, I had nothing. You see, I was experiencing a very unique sense of frustration, not only because as a nation it seemed that we were consistently finding ourselves dealing with blow after blow of painful injustice, but also because after each instance it seemed like we were going in circles. There'd be an outcry on social media, right? And then pastors would try to find a way to briefly mention what was going on in their sermons. And then brands would do these huge gestures of solidarity on social media. And then nothing. We'd move on and we'd forget until it happened again. And after a year of George Floyd's and Breonna Taylor's and Ahmaud Arbery's, I was starting to really feel the weight of all of this. And the cycle was starting to take its toll on me. So I sat down and started writing out what all of this felt like to me. And I named this cycle the cycle of inaction. Here's how it goes. So a horrific injustice takes place. And in this context, for clarity, I'm specifically referring to injustices that are rooted in systemic racism and white supremacy. Then there's widespread shock and confusion as though we're unaware or we've forgotten that we're dealing with the fruit of seeds that were sown in racism and hatred. And then, whether triggered by pressure online or by witnessing the distress of our neighbors, we have an emotional response, right? And that can range from anger to empathy to devil's advocacy. And we can all agree that the internet is a hot mess for a while, right? And as a result, many of us tumble into performative allyship. And we post the posts and we say that we're doing the work, but in reality, let's be honest, many of us aren't really doing much of anything at all. So guilt and fatigue show up, leading to inaction and passivity, and resulting in apathy. But the truth is, none of us want it to be this way. As followers of Jesus, we desperately want to see good triumph over evil, to be the hands and feet of Jesus, to seek justice, love mercy, walk humbly, to fully embody that radical agape, unconditional love that always trusts and hopes and protects and perseveres, to fully love God and in turn fully love each other. We all want that. But the truth of the matter is, although we know that we were created in Christ Jesus to do good works, we don't always know how to do them. How do we bridge the gap between good intentions and good work? From inaction to action. I believe that the key is to make the work personal. It's asking God to help us do that heart work so we can in turn be focused on the homework. It's finding the intersection of our passions, our skill sets, and perceived needs that we see in the world and using all of that to guide us towards fulfilling our present purpose, what we were called to do on this earth right here and now. It's being both heavenly minded and earthly good. We know that we live in a fallen and broken world. This should not be shocking to any of us, but rather it should serve as a constant reminder that we have to always be ready to do those hard and holy things, not just with our words and our thoughts and our social media posts, but with our deeds, with self-education, learning how to hold space, leaning into empathy, working towards equity, locking arms with each other instead of fighting against each other, using our God-given gifts to make this work personal. And when we live our lives with this posture, we know that we'll always be ready to spring into action, not only when evil shows up again, because it will, but in every single moment in between. So, after meditating on all of these truths, I sat down. It's still January 6th, 2021. And I made amendments to this cycle, calling it the cycle of action. And hopefully this serves as a reminder for all of us that when horrific injustice takes place, we won't be overtaken by shock and confusion as if the fruit of systemic oppression is surprising, but instead our emotional response will be marked by empathy and compassion, leading to a rejection of performative allyship in exchange for the real, vigorous work. And should guilt and fatigue try to settle in, we'll recenter the needs of those yearning for liberation, remembering that inaction and passivity are detrimental to justice, and that apathy is the antithesis of unconditional love. Last summer, when the weight of this conversation started to get really, really heavy for me, I sat down and I wrote a poem, and I entitled it Good Work. And I used it to inspire and encourage myself, and hopefully it can do the same for all of you today. It goes like this. You were created to do good work. Work that empowers and inspires, liberates and transforms, restores and softens. Yes, work can be hard, as it was meant to be. The verb itself calls us into action, rejecting passivity and demanding sustained effort. It provokes and agitates and disturbs. But this work, this call for justice, is good work. It defends the oppressed and frees the captive. It tears down walls and destroys barriers. It changes things. So when you're feeling weary or hopeless or spent, remind yourself that the darkness is being flooded by marvelous light. Yes, this is work, and it is good. The good news is that the darkness has already been flooded by that marvelous light, right? And God is illuminating the path before us already. But it is our responsibility to take those steps and walk in that light. We hold in each hand two of the holiest tasks: the Great Commission to make disciples, and the greatest commandment to love. May we resolve to do both for the glory of God and the good of our neighbor.
Well, I hope you were moved by hearing Dani Coke just share with us her story, her journey, her heart for this. I thought her words that apathy is the antithesis of unconditional love is penetrating. We can't just sit back and do nothing. It doesn't really show our love to not take action. And so I'm encouraged by that. And I hope it encourages you. I think this is one of those talks that's perfect to share with your friends, maybe teenagers, maybe people who are wanting to have more education around the topics that Dani has addressed. I think you'd be encouraged by them. Go follow her at Oh Happy Dani. And if you want to watch this talk and you want to view it and share it again, go to qideas.org/trial and take advantage of a free trial for 30 days of Q Media, where you can have access to hundreds of talks, podcasts we've curated, additional content that we are constantly creating in an effort to shape you so that you can shape those that you lead, so that you're navigating this world in a faithful way, but understanding truth, understanding how to lead well, and how to have some of the most difficult and complex conversations in a joyful, hopeful way. So join us at qideas.org/trial to be a part of the community that's listening and learning through Q Media. And until next week, have a great week.